This type of Yerushalmi says, our Eruvin in the article Oz V'Hadashim on Daf Nun Beis Amud Aleph, the fourth line down. Al Daitin Rabbanan in the Vilna. It's the fifth line down in the Gemara. Mem Chesam and Beis. Al Daitin Rabbanan Tamon Nicha. So we're talking about the inference from Mishnah that a cotton can be Zachin Erev. Yes, it was said that it's first we were trying to say that it's going to opinion that a cotton can take truma. And it says even if a cotton can't take truma, a cotton can be zoichet, require something, and we know that this goes al daited rabbanan tamanicha. I know this is saying not according to Rabbi so I think it's bringing down this Gemara as the basis for this idea that a cotton can be zoichet. Very well known principle. What did Rabbanan Taman say? Rabbanan Taman Amar Sheva Nachman Bar Yaakov and Bavel saying there Nachman Bar Yaakov Kosh Nosim Lo Egos Mashlicho. Anybody who give him a nut and he tosses aside. I was saying of significance and he tosses aside. So Venotlo you give him a pebble, Venotlo and he takes it. In other words, he retains it. So Motzi Biyado Kamotzi La Ashba. So somebody who puts in his hands like putting it out into the garbage. Chaim has a girsa ba ashba. The difference is that in front of it is that somebody who puts into his hand is like putting the garbage. In other words, he makes it hefker. Where Chaim learns is somebody who finds something in his hand. It's as if finding it in the garbage. In other words, it's hefker. Okay, so amotzi ashba dami. Somebody who's puts something in his hand or takes something from his hand. It's as if he's putting it out in the garbage or takes something out of garbage. Ego is venotlo, right? If you give him a nut and he takes the nut, so when you give him a pebble and he tosses away the pebble, so then he already has das. So if somebody steals something from him, even though he doesn't yet have ownership to a Raisa, but he has ownership to Rabbanan, and Chazal say anybody who takes from him is over Gezam, Nei Dar Geshalom, because of the pathways of peace, meaning it's the rabbi said he has ownership, Rabbanan. Egos v'tzror, you give them a nut and a pebble. The note lo umatznio, so he has he takes the nut and he puts it into hiding. In other words, he retains it. And he brings it back after some time. In other words, he has das to store valuable objects. According to Bnei Moshe, he only stores the nut. According to Korbanei, he stores both, the nut and the pebble, because he understands that he's giving something to safeguard. So that's a higher level. In other words, it's not just immediate gratification. The nut he takes and the pebble he throws away. No, he knows, okay, I'm giving something, must be for a purpose. Let me safeguard it and come bring it back after a while so we can figure out why I was given this object So, Gazeo Gezagomer. So his theft is absolute theft. Meaning if somebody steals from him, it's absolute theft. Which it could be the Raisa. It sounds like it's the Raisa, but there is a concept of Gezagomer Divrei, and there is a concept of levels of Gazeo even the Rabbanan. So it's not 100% definitive here, definitely in the Gemara, but this third level is not in the Bavli. The Bavli just has two levels. It's the first two levels of egos, the two levels with tzor v'not egos mashlicho or egos v'not tzor mashlicho. This third idea of the safekeeping, that's not in the Bavli, and it seems in the Bavli that it's even Gezel Gomer on the second level, but again, could be only the Rabbanan. And the article brings down here the whole discussion. It could be it's also only by matana, not saying it gets as a gift. But in any event, all that is not relevant to our discussion today. Zachel atmo avolo lacher. So he's zachel for himself, but not zachel for others. Okay, so Rav Huna Amar, so that's not going to help us in our Mishnah, but Rav Huna Amar, Huna said, and this is the punchline for our purposes, Geshem shezachel atza kach zachel lacher. So just like he's himself, he's Zechel. So our Mishnah can be explained very well according to Rav Huna, although according to Rav Nachman Yaakov, it's not necessarily going to work. And perhaps when the word Sadat Rabbanan Tamon Nicha, we meant before, not perhaps, it meant according to Rav Huna, not according to Rav Nachman Yaakov. Hakomodim, Shem Madnasa Matana. But all this is to be Zoicha, to receive. But everybody agrees that his gift is not about gift. See, Kitain Ish, if a man gives a gift. Matnas Ish Matana, the matana of a man is a gift, of an adult. Matnas Katan Eina Matana, Divrei Chachamim. So, this is the matana of a katan is not a valid gift. The words Divrei Chachamim, according to Reb Chaim, these words Divrei Chachamim are not going on what it says previously, but it's going on the next thing. Divrei Chachamim, Rabbi Yehuda ben Pazich, Rabbi Yochanan, etc. As we'll come to in a moment. But as the Shneur Schos points out, there's discussion in the Bavli, Kuflin Vav and Ralph, about matana, and it does not bring down his pasuk. This derivation of the pasuk is unique to the Yerushalmi. Okay, so the in any event, whether Divrei Chachamim was going what it says previously, it's or the word says subsequently. Let's go and read it now as if it's going with subsequently. Divrei Chachamim Rabbi Yehuda Pazi b'shem Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yaakov b'shem Rabbi Yochanan. Lo en gezelo mechuvar ad shiyavi shtei saros. That it's his gazel is not the oraisa. Mechuvar in the Yerushalmi means the oraisa, despite the fact that the Korban seems to equivocate on that. It says biboreres. It's not clear. She exeged gemura. So, but generally speaking, mechuvar means the raisa. So I think that's what it means here. That's the yeah. That's article also says. Misha goes over Gezel Gomer with the Raisa. Ad Shtei Saros until he has 2 hairs. Rabbi Avo B'Shem Rabbi Avo said that Amar Lahoti Menu Bedin. So the Korban explains Hadad Amar Had to play Rabbi Yossi Begittin. Parakan Izokin. Now Rabbi Yossi says in Gittin, Vama Dexeas Katan Gezel Gomer. The Lomar Elahoti Menu Min Hagazla Medin. It's Gezel Gomer. That which you said the Gezel of even a child is Gezel Gomer. And this is could be going back on what we said over here. Gezel Gomer, like I said before, that Gezel Gomer is can be the Rabbanan. Then that is in fact why it's limited. That if somebody steals from a cotton, we extricate from that which extricate that money from that person who stole from the cotton. But in terms of korban shvua, as Korban says, shechayev al tfias cotton shvua, that you should be chayev on the claim of a cotton shvua. If you or if he made a claim against you, that you should have to respond with a shvua, or if you swore falsely to him. Voda, and then he conceded, admitted that. You're not going to be chayav korban shvua until you bring 2 hairs. Okay, so now the next words baram krabanan dehacha. Reb Chaim takes that from here and puts in later on. 2 lines down, but in the meantime, we'll leave it out here and put it in 2 lines down. Rabbi Yossi asks, if we're going to have from Psukim, like we said before, that ish, right? Matnas ish matana, matnas kod ena matana. So then Rabbi Yossi b'miat af atzmo leiske, which you shouldn't be able to be zoich in a matana either. To receive receive a gift, not just not give a gift. Receive el re'eu, kitin ish el re'eu. The person gives to his friend. So should mean ad shekareu. Just like the giver has to be a adult, the recipient also has to be an adult, a peer of the person who gives a gift. Well, it doesn't answer the question. Now we put in the words Baran Kabbanan Dehacha. Okay, so like the Rabbanan over here. So this is referring to that which Rabbi Yochanan just said. Right? That there's no, so presumably you also can't be Zoicha. Right? So therefore, what do we do with our Mishnah? Which says they can be Zoicha and Eruv. So Rabbi Yosef Rabun B'Shem Rabbi Shimon Ben Yitzchak Yardu La, our Mishnah is coming down in B'Shitas HaPiutos in the according to the sugya of Pu'utos. Pu'utos means older children, right? The thing we learned, the Mishnah says, the Gittin, Pu'utos mikha mekar umekar memkar b'metaltin, mekar memkar metaltin. So Pu'utos are mikha mekar, and the Karma Ada elaborates, finds midrabanan. The Rav Huna lo come around midrabanan. And even Rav Huna, the Rabbanan Tamon, they're not this. He's not saying the Raisa, right? They have Gezel. It's the Rabbanan gave them this Mekach Umemkar. The Mizach Latzu Ulachem. He's the Zach of Atzochem, the Sever Chachem Dasam, and it's like Chachem in the Mishnah Gittin. The cave and they're midrabanan zechem, and since Erev is midrabanan, so therefore Chazal were lenient, and they said yes, even though midraisa, it might not be Gezel Gomer, even Rabbi Yotzi. But Rav Huna was saying, no, since the Rabbanan putas mecha meka neidak shalom, so therefore that whatever level of Dr. Shalom it is, Gezel Gomer, or just lower level of Dr. Shalom, whatever level it is, that's enough for everything, because there's the Rabbanan, they were making and said, for this purpose, it's sufficient. And now we come full circle to what we spoke about yesterday. So why did Mishnah say if Ktanim work, so B'no Bito Ktanim should also work? Because their hand is like his hand, meaning not because they're minors, because minors can also work because of the Takon Rabban Aputas Mika Mekach, but this is because they have the Yodin Kiyado. And even the Rabbanan Tamon would concede that they're not a separate rishus because they're smuchin al shulchan the father, smuchin al shulchano of the father, and therefore they can't be zocha for others because they're not a separate choshen mishpat entity. And that resolves all the question of shivcha, which you started with at the beginning of the Gemara yesterday. That what about how does the shivcha work? It's the shivcha must be a ktanav. She's an Eved Ivri, and so the shivcha can be considered to be a separate entity because not going to be samach al shulchano. I guess there's a scenario where they're not the same. They don't have that same. Even shivcha, even their ktanim, they don't have same status smuchim shulchano, not smuchim shulchano as children, and therefore it can work by Evan shivcha katan. Through them in Eruv. Rabban the Kisarin, I mean, kam sheish das tino, kam shein das tino. Evidently, they're learning the two different parts of the Mishnah. In other words, that there's the avdo v'shichoso evrim. We talk about minors, but they're minors of das, and beno and v'loy de beno bido ktanim is because of the Shein Bam Das. They're too little, they don't have Das, and they don't even have the Schemi Rabbanan. That's one way of learning this Gemara. According to Reb Chaim, actually it's a question answer here on Reb Nachman Bar Yaakov. Nachman Bar Yaakov said that, oh, by the way, the first way I learned is the Korban Eda. The way Reb Chaim learns it, it's a question and answer of Nachman Bar Yaakov. So it's a question and answer, not two separate statements. First and the nation and the other, then the same Rabban Kesarin, but rather it's a question and then the answer Rabban Kesarin. So the question is, how can Nachman Yaakov say that a cut can only be Zaychal Atzmo, not Lacherim? But Tanina didn't learn. The only reason I can't be Zaychal Acherim is because they're not Yod and Kiad is like the Yad of their owner, of their father or the owner. But otherwise, it can't be Zoich, even the Tanim. So, Nachman Yaakov. I mean, they say, Kam Sheish Das, Kam Shein Das Tinok. So, even Rab Nachman Yaakov will be moida that when he reaches the level of Das, the level of Putos, that he can actually be Zoich Lacherim as well. Okay. Tamatina. There we learned, Shol Para V'Shol the Chesed says on the side, Bavli. The time of the year, Shol Para, V'Sholchalo, which I have a Mishnah. Shol Para, V'Sholchalo B'Yad Beno. Somebody borrows a cow and you send him in the hands of his son, his eved, his agent, umesa, and it died. Potter, you're exempt. That's about the owner sent the cow in the hands of his own son, eved or shliach. So the show hasn't taken yet possession. He's Potter. That's not, the Araya, both Korban and Moshe say here, is actually from our parts from the Sefer of that Mishnah, where it says, if the Shoel said, send it to me through your Eved, let's see the Korban inside. Well, actually, the Moshe is probably easier for our person. Tani Hossam. She'emar lo Shol shlach b'yad avdecha v'shilcha lo umeisa b'derech. The Shoel said, send me the hands of your Eved, and it died on the way. Chayiv Shoel. The Shoel is chayiv. The seems to go against our Mishnah. Leisa Damar does not tell us Eved mizakami rabbi lacher. The Eved can be mizaka from his an Eved Kanani we talk about can be zeicha from the hands of his master, somebody else. We don't say yado kiyado kiyad by love, and he can't be zeicha for others, right? The so it seems contradictory to our Mishnah. Seems for our Mishnah seems an Eved Kanani cannot be zeicha for other people, because the other can't rabbo. And here it says that an Eved Kanani can be zeicha for the Shoel. So Shoel comes chayev for the whatever owns him happen along the way. So two answers. He says could be it's about Eved Ivri, and Eved Ivri, as the Korban says, Tipata the Farshim is somebody Eved lo kani le gufi lian zeb yochel iskos achim. Eved Ivri, evidently even there's some shulchan I don't know. It still is considered to be a separate corporate entity, and therefore, because as Korban explains, because Skuf is not Korban, so therefore, he can be Zeicha for the Shoel. Another answer, Rabbi Yochanan, if you take a Eved Kanani, the Potter law, resolve it, the Shoel really said, just send it. Open the gate and let it come over to me on its own. So the fact that you sent it together with your Eved, that doesn't detract from that obligation. The show conduct accept myself. But he said, any way you send it is fine. V'tani Kain, and we learned this the halacha. In higo himshicha, if you pull the animal, if you conduct the animal, pull the animal, Carla, you call the animal uvas, and it came. At that point, you're to pay your mekabel achrayas kishoel as a shoel. Okay, not like a shoel, but as a shoel, you become a shoel. Rabbi Zir shama la mean, and the Rabbi Chaim puts it over here. The word hada. He heard derived it from here. I guess there's only different sugya, and the Yerushalmi brings down different sugyas and puts them on wherever they're relevant. So here, Zira evidently was learning about the zchia of an Eved, and he learned out from our Mishnah, right? Zira Shemi Aminada. He wasn't mizak. He can't be mizak not through his minor sons and daughters, nor through his non-Jewish slaves. Because their hand is like his hand. Does not tell us that an Eved cannot be zoicha from his master through to another person. Eved Knani. So the Gemara says, no, could be our mission. Our mission is doing specifically Grey Meir. Could Rabbi argue on our Mishnah? The Gemara asks, Haki Sar Mishnah Grey Meir. Vatani Ishto, it says in our Mishnah that you can be zoicha an Erev through your wife. By Ishto, it said. Isla Meimer the right mayor could say it's right mayor. Now there's the Girsa which throws in here, and even don't throw it in, Carbon 8 and learns as if it's here. The mayor of Yad Isha Yad Baila. Okay, mayor holds Yad Isha like Yad Baila. So how could he be Zochan Erev through his wife? Rabbi Chinina b'shem by Pinchas says Tipater Kahain Tatan. Now it's going to the following price. It's on the Ishto Ena Podelo Meiser Sheni. Yeah, the Tanakama in this price holds that a wife can't redeem Meiser Sheni for a husband. Meaning that if she's played it for her husband, the stuff that add a chomesh. The halach is that if you redeem somebody else's Meiser Sheni, you don't have to add a chomesh. Only the owner has to add a chomesh. So if a woman's played their husband's Meiser Sheni, she still has to add a chomesh because she's not a separate entity, right? Shimon Meir said Ishto Podelo Meiser Sheni. No. There's this version of Rabbi Meir holds that his wife can redeem Meiser Sheni without paying additional chomesh. So according to this version of Rabbi Meir, there is his wife is not Yad Ishta is not Yad Baila, right? And the Hein Tani, this brisa of Meir Yad Evik Yad Rabo, according to this brisa by Meiser Sheni, then we could say that Rabbi Meir holds that Yad Evik Yad Rabo, which is we know the Vishita, and we say Lo Eved Yad other. Meir Yad Eved Yad Rabo. Rabbi Meir makes the Yad of an Eved, the Yad of his Rebbe. Lo Avad Yad Ish Yad Baila does make the hands of a wife like her husband. Okay, next Mishnah, Halacha Zayin. Nismait ochel. You need a specific shear for the food, and the shear of the food for was diminished from the amount which you actually need. So mostly mizake. A person can add from on his own. If it's shituf mevos, could be any min. It doesn't have to be specifically the original min, because there's no specific min for shituf mevos. Nismayit ochem mostly misakav. Any with tzarich you don't have to let people know that you added on. Nitzvasei v'aleim. If more people moved into the neighborhood, so then. Mostly Mazaka, you can also add on, an individual can add on, but you have to know that the new people know that you added on to the they added on to the Shitub Vos. And the Pnei Moshe explained back in the Mishnah, in the previous Mishnah, where the Pnei Moshe appears, maybe in the article they changed it. Pnei Moshe appeared in this Mishnah here. Yeah. The article actually took the Pnei Moshe from Halacha Vav and put it in Halacha Zayin. And the Vilna, it's still in Halacha Vav, the Pnei Moshe. But here in the article, it says here, the reason why you have to be Modia is Kagon Sheish Chotzer Shnei Pesachim Shnei Mevos, says with the Chotzer has two openings to Mevos. The Dil Manichalu Bahai Ba Lo Bahai. Maybe the new residents want to participate with that Movi and not the other Movi. I mean, the Chotzer Pesach Echel, the Movi Shishtatfo, but the Movi only has one opening. That Movi in which the original Shituf occurred, and Tzorech Lo Diel Movi, and never have to tell me just Moitzi Mizake, the amount of food which you need to add. So Gemara says, Mamodia, what do you tell them? Halacha. Now, there are a lot of Perushim in this. The Reb Chaim says that you tell them Hilchos Eruvin. That you tell them what that this is the halacha. That we can tell, we can mazaka to you. You don't have to participate in midaitcho. You can mazaka you. The Pnei Moshe changed the gears from halacha to hachola. In other words, that the bread was diminished and has to be replenished. Or so meach brings down that it could be that it was then supposed to halacha, but it was Rashi Tevis Hey Lamed Beis Hey. It says Ha Livnei Ha Mavi. Okay, and then he says, or Samech suggests another interpretation that he tells them this halacha to be mat to the mavi. The Mashbiach changes the kirsa to achla, which tells you ate part of the Erev, and that's why you had to add on. But according to Pnei Moshe, we just mentioned, I think it's very poshut. Not sure anybody has these difficulties. You tell Malacha that there are two, when there are two mavos, you can only be mishtatev to one. So we included you in this sheet of this mavoi. And tell him, and don't try to do the other mavoi because then you're going to mess us up. So therefore, I tell him this halacha, the two mavos, you have to choose one. We chose this one. You're with. We want you to be with us in this one. Okay, so I think that's the most pashut shot. In any event, so now the Gemara goes on to it says, "Leisa da Amara does not teach us." She'ena mezaklem megufa shel ochel. So the Korban Eda says, the Kosar there's some zakha she'mezakel lachova ochlo. So this like Mashbiach said, he took it that the mezakeh had taken the food and eaten it. So he was mezakeh food. They took it and ate it, and they put more. So does not tell us that you're not mezakeh in the guf shel because otherwise it'd be theft. Mezakeh in the guf of the eichel. If the person doing mezakeh, he mamish is kind of the eichel, what right did you have to eat that food? Must be the schia is symbolic, not real. So no, it doesn't mean that he ate it. It could be that the mice came and took it. So that's why perhaps schia is actual, factual. And the fact that here he added that on was because, not because he ate himself, which he would not be allowed to do, but because the mice came along and they ate it. Okay. And I think that brings us to the bottom of the Yom. Yes, and we'll stop here for today.